Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Whether you're joining us on this webinar or watching us live stream on our social media platforms, welcome to this special event celebrating the Global Entrepreneurship Week. Today, we are embarking on a journey to explore the intricacies of the startup life cycle and available opportunities for funding. I'm Dashni Saeed. I am the Accelerator Manager of Takween Accelerator. I am pleased to introduce our esteemed speaker, Ms. Eileen Brewer, who is the Executive Director at 757 Accelerate. I would like to extend my gratitude to the Financial Services Volunteer Corps and Middle East Partnership Initiative, whose crucial support has made this event possible. Ms. Eileen brings a wealth of expertise, having worked with startups extensively at various stages of their startup life cycle. Today, she will guide us through the dynamic landscape of startup journey and highlight the diverse funding opportunities available for emerging businesses. Let's seize this opportunity to learn, exchange ideas, and get inspired. Our webinar is scheduled for 1 hour, so we will ensure to have an ample time for deep dive into our topics, allowing us for an engaging Q&A session at the end. So without further ado, let's delve into the insightful discussion. Welcome to the webinar on startup life cycle and funding opportunities, a key part of our Global Entrepreneurship Week celebration. Ms. Eileen, the floor is yours. Over to you.
Thank you very much. And good evening, everyone. And thanks for joining us today, either from your home or your office or online somewhere. It's a pleasure to have time with you all. Today, we're going to talk about the startup life cycle and how funding works in that space and some funding opportunities. A little bit about my background. I come with 20 years of experience working in Silicon Valley at tech companies in the San Francisco, California area. I have been an angel investor, early stage investor for 8 years. And for the last 6 years, I've been providing entrepreneurship training. And I've gone to over 10 countries to deliver that training, including living in Kurdistan just a couple years ago to help launch the Takween Accelerator. And the last 4 years, I've been running startup accelerators. So I get a lot of exposure to not only startups, but to investors, and spend my life inside of this ecosystem. So what happens is most times the only thing we hear about startups is big advertisements about big investments happening. We hear only about the highlighting at the end of the long journey about how startups are receiving millions of dollars, but we don't hear about what happens before that. So there's a misconception that if I have an idea and you introduce me to an investor and I tell this investor my idea, that they will invest in me because my idea is good. And that's not actually how it works. But because we only see the end result in the news, we don't know that there's this long process that happens beforehand. So the presentation today is about getting into that process before you make it to the news about your $1 million investors coming to support you. So what happens through this whole startup life cycle? Instead of just coming up with an idea, it's best to come up with a problem that needs to be solved. It's best to find big problems that need solved. It could be replacing old methods with new methods. Maybe there's some analog systems that should be digitalized. There's a startup in Kurdistan that's digitalizing medical records. That would be a great example. It could be that a current process is very limited in how far it can reach, but with technology, it could reach further. And it could be that there's out-of-date content that is all manual, again, converting it from an analog system to a digital system, or providing services that used to only be able to be provided very locally. Figure out, how can I provide these services at a more national or international level? Then the next thing that you can do is think about having a co-founder. And one of the ways to do this is to list your skills. What are you really strong at? What do you offer? What can you bring? Where is your experience? And then think about the type of skills that would be needed for your new business to be successful. What types of skills are you missing? So maybe you're very strong at marketing, but you don't have a technology background and you need to find somebody with a developer and a technology background, or you're a developer and you don't have the business or the marketing background, or you may be missing the finance skills. So think about what you bring and what you need, and then start searching for a co-founder or two to join your team. And once you identify that, set up an agreement on how you will share the equity of the business, who will receive what percentage of ownership. And one of the ways you can do that is through a process called dynamic equity sharing. And what that means is each one of the co-founders gets a percentage of ownership, a percentage of the equity based on contributions, not based on title. So one of the mistakes that happens is you and your buddy decide that you're going to start a business, and then you say, okay, we're going to split it and we each own 50%. And then one of you works twice as hard as the other one. And then there's an issue around one of you should own a little bit more percentage than the other one because you're working much harder than the other one. Or you bring a third person on and they all of a sudden start working very hard. With dynamic equity sharing, you keep track at the end of every week what everyone contributed, and that starts calculating for you what percentage each of you should have in the business. And there's a tool called Slicing Pie that you could use for this, or there's some other ones around. If you do some searching on it, you can find some tools to help you with tracking this. Slicing Pie, PIE.com, offers a tool that you can use. If you dig deep into their website, they have a free Excel spreadsheet that you can use. And they also have a free presentation on YouTube to understand how to use the spreadsheet. So the next thing that you can do at this point is to go register and join an incubator or a makerspace where you can get some training on how to build a business and be successful at it. You want to start building your business skills. Your business acumen is important, that you understand all aspects of the business, and increase your network in the startup ecosystem so that you don't feel like you're doing it all alone. You have other founders and trainers and mentors around you as you're starting this life cycle, right? And then you would like to learn about Lean Canvas. Lean Canvas is a template that we use instead of writing a multi-page, very long business plan, which is the old style. We have replaced it with what we call Lean Canvas template. And you can download this off of a quick search. You can type in Lean Canvas, you could select images, and then you will see a bunch of templates that you can just download one of those and use that. However, if you're in an incubator and you have some trainers and some mentors, they can help you complete the template to understand what all the terminology means in that template and to be able to complete it successfully. You can also learn about design thinking. And what's important about design thinking is that it teaches you how to go out and interview potential customers before you start building anything. One of the biggest mistakes that happens with startups is that you come up with an idea and then you build it because you believe on your own that this is a great idea and the world needs what you built and you're passionate about it, but you haven't interviewed anyone. So you've put in hundreds of hours and hundreds of dollars, but you haven't interviewed anyone. And then you end up with a very hard reality that you may fail. So design thinking and customer discovery are the process of interviewing potential users before you build anything, which will increase your success rate. So if you built something up right now today and you have not gone through design thinking and you have not gone through customer discovery, you're likely become too attached to what you built, and it will increase your failure rate. If we look at the top 20 reasons why startups fail, always at the top is no market need. And it also can be called no market fit, no product market fit, which means you built something that the market doesn't want to buy or doesn't feel like it is needed. So it's important to survey the market first before you start building. Don't build first and then go to market. Very critical step in there. And this is how incubators can help you through that process. So when you're doing market research with these tools, you learn what user personas are, and user personas are you creating. These are the demographics of my target customer. Are they male? Are they female? Are they a certain age? Do they have to live in the country? Do they have to speak a certain language? Are they, do they have expendable monthly income that they can spend on your product or service? Are they students? Are you building a tutoring app? So you need to really think about who's your target user. And then you go out and you interview target users. And we recommend that you interview at least 50. You can, some will stop after 20 or 30, but we highly recommend that you try to get 50 interviews done. And then from that information, you'll build a better product because you will have been listening to your customers and you will be understanding what they really want. And part of this process as well, we don't ask them, if I make this, will you buy it? Instead, you ask them about what their experience is around the thing that you want to make. So for example, let's say I want to make red shoes and put red shoes in the market. I do not go out and ask people, will you buy red shoes? Instead, you ask questions around, how often do you buy shoes? How much money do you spend on shoes? What do you like about the shoes you buy? What do you think is missing in the market around the shoes? What do you want to see in the shoe market that you don't see today? So it teaches you much more than if you were to say, if I make these red shoes, will you buy them? So it's important that these interview questions are designed correctly, and the mentors in the incubators can help you with doing that. Now, once you've done that, you can go ahead and build a prototype or a minimal viable product. MVP, minimal viable product. Viable meaning the smallest version of your product that you can actually put in front of people to get some feedback. It does not need to be perfect. So one of the things that happens in early startup ecosystems in cultures similar to where you are is there's this belief that it has to be absolutely perfect before I show it to anybody. Like you're trying to show them only the end product. But in reality, the way the startups ecosystems work is that you need to be able to bring a prototype of your product out and get feedback right away. So you have to show it before it's perfect so that you can get feedback. And I'll talk a little bit later about how we can all help startups with this. So at this point, now that you have a prototype or a minimal viable product, you can start looking for some grants. So grants are money that you can receive that is not a loan and you do not have to pay it back. And they are not taking any equity. They're not taking any ownership in your business for giving you the funding. So grants will also often come in like from friends and families. You can get friends and families to either grant you money or to give you loans or to give you money in exchange for investment, and they receive part ownership. What you want to do is look for small business grants from the NGOs in your community or from the government. So look for small business grants. Though that's your number one goal because that's the free money. And then next would be a friends and family loans or investments. And then go ahead and start talking to investors. A Rocky Angel Group network is one of those that you could speak to if you have a really strong prototype and good feedback from your prototype and you know exactly what you're going to build next. They may invest early. Usually they'll invest a little bit at later stage, but there are opportunities that you can get some investments early, but always look for the grants first. Then you need to start going out and doing your sales and generating revenue. You need to be able to develop a really strong sales pitch so that you're consistent in your messaging about your product and your company. So we call this the sales pitch. And you want to be able to identify your value proposition. So your value proposition is, how are you different from everyone else in the market who's making what you're making or making something similar to what you're making? How do you stand out? What is the value that you bring that your competitors do not have? And you need to highlight that in your sales pitch as you're going out and selling your product. We recommend that you create what we call a sales playbook. And a sales playbook is the narrative on how you sell your product. This is what we say about our product, so that anyone else in your company that's going out and doing sales, all your messaging is the same. And if you start hiring a salesperson, you want their messaging to be exactly consistent with what you want said about the business. You don't want to just hire a salesperson and send them out and say, sell my product, without giving them the narrative or the script, because they will start saying things or making promises that were not your intention. So a sales playbook keeps them on track and only speaking towards how you want the company represented, and avoids them making promises that you can't keep. And so after you identify your sales proposition, your value prop, you put your value prop into your sales pitch and you're ready to go out and start selling. You want to build a sales pipeline. So that pipeline means I have all these people who are looking to purchase my product and I'm keeping track of them. That's a pipeline, is the long list of sales opportunities that you need to go out and contact each one of them. For example, if you have created something that's educational and you want to sell it to schools, then the first thing you would do is create a spreadsheet and start listing all of the schools close by you, and then a little further away, and then a little further away. So you start having this list of 100 schools and choose the ones that are closest to you and start working with them. But on that list, you're keeping track of, who did I talk to? When did I talk to them? What's my confidence level that they may purchase from me? What's the next action I need to take with them to potentially sell my product to them? So you don't do this with no records and it's just in my WhatsApp and it's nowhere else. You create a spreadsheet and you keep really close track of who you're selling to and who you're talking to and move them through the selling process. And maybe you offer them a free demo. And then after the demo where you've demonstrated your product, then maybe you give them login credentials that they get to use the product for free for 30 days. And then you go out and you try to get them to start paying a monthly fee to use the product. But you keep track of that across all of the potential people or schools that might buy from you. And then sometimes you offer these free trials to convert them. So you give them login credentials for 30 days, then you convert them. You want to keep track of all that so you know what your conversion rate is. Like, does everybody that I give a free trial to convert into paying, or is it 70%, 50%, 20%? And if it's really low, then you know you're not meeting their needs and you need to offer some different features so you can increase that conversion rate. Now you're ready to go into an accelerator. So the difference between an incubator and accelerator, an incubator incubates ideas and converts ideas into businesses or startups, and accelerators accelerate businesses and startups. They don't incubate them. When you go into an accelerator, it's best that you already have a product, you already have sales, you already have a sales pipeline, and you're generating some revenue. And the accelerator is helping you prepare to get ready to talk to investors. So you're going to increase your business acumen again. You're going to go a deeper dive into business finance and due diligence process and having a go-to-market strategy well defined, and will give you those deeper skills that you need so that you're ready to grow exponentially. You will also increase your network. You'll again be introduced to new mentors and other peers who are running businesses so that you have support around you. You have other co-founders, other founders and mentors and trainers that you can ask questions to get help. And you learn how to pitch to investors and start building an investor network. So previously you were working on a customer network, and now you're going to start focusing on an investor network. Angel investors are typically the first time that you're asking for investment from strangers. So earlier you could be asking friends and family to invest in your business. We call that the friends and family round. But now angel investors is the first time where you're actually going out and pitching your business to people that you don't know and asking them to invest. And so the threshold is harder because they're not your friends and family, and you really need to convince them that they should invest in your business. So investors invest in between 3 and 6% of the startups that they meet. So they're going to listen to 100 pitches, and they might invest in 3 to 6 out of those 100 startups that they listen to. So you need to get really comfortable with pitching your business. And I will guarantee you that you will pitch about 100 times. And you could easily pitch at least 40 times before you get your very first investment. This is not an easy process. It's very competitive and it's very difficult. It is not just, let me see the investor, let me talk to the investor, and as soon as I tell him my idea, he's going to write me a check. It's not that simple, but it's very rare that you get to learn the whole process behind the scenes of what's actually happening. You're going to be pitching dozens and dozens of times, and then one will invest. And as soon as one invests, then it'll be a little bit shorter time to get the second one to invest. And after the second one invests, it'll be shorter time to get the third one to invest. So it gets easier over time, but in the beginning, it's very challenging, and you have to be very persistent and have a strong belief in your product and have a very big investor network. So it's important that you start building out potential investors and keeping track of them and keeping them updated on what you're working on. So you could be building an investor network now Again, it's a separate spreadsheet and just listing their names and their email addresses, where they are, do some research. What else have they invested in? Do they like the type of product that you are creating, or do they invest in just medical devices and nothing else? Like, keep track of what their typical investments are. And then you can actually start sending them emails once a quarter or once a month. You just send and just let them know, hey, I'm Eileen and I have this new startup business, and this is what I've done over the last 3 months, and this is what I'm planning to do over the next 3 months. You're not asking for investment, you're just starting to build a relationship with these investors. And so they get an email from you once every 3 months, and all you're doing is just a real high level bullet. Over the last 3 months, I achieved this, this, and this, and over the next 3 months, I'm going to do these things. And they get used to seeing your company name, and they're keeping track of the activities that you're doing, so that when you do go out and pitch to them, they have some history with you. You have some rapport with them. After angel investors is when we get to venture capital. So VC stands for venture capital. Angel investors are individuals who are writing a check, paying you from their own money. It's my money that I earned in my bank account, and I invest in you my own money. That's an angel investor. A venture capital investors is different. That's a fund. And what happens with that is, if I'm the venture capital fund manager, I go out and I ask wealthy people to put money in my fund. So it's different. I'm going to invest other people's money, and the dollar amount is much, much higher. So angel investors are smaller checks, VCs are bigger checks, but the fund manager is investing other people's money. And if you hear the words Series A, Series B, Series C, that's in reference to VC investing rounds. So maybe I had an angel round, and maybe I raised $200,000 in an angel round, and that lasted me for 2 years. And now I'm going to pitch and try to get VC investors. The very first time I raise a round, open a round, ask for money from VCs, that's called a Series A. And then maybe I raise 2 million from them, and it lasts me a few years. And then I go out and I want to raise again, that would be called Series B. So each time I open a new round of raising money with VCs, it becomes Series ABC and onward. Very big startups like Uber and Airbnb and others, and Twitter, when it first started, they went through Series E, F, G. So you can see sometimes it takes a long time to get to a point where you're actually making enough income that you no longer need to take investment. So what happens when you have a bunch of money come in? I got this big Series A VC round. I have lots of money coming in. I'm feeling super excited. I'm really hoping that my business is going to grow. I need to start using that money wisely. And this is where some startups will fail. If the founders are not financially responsible, they will not spend the money the way they're supposed to spend it. And this is when you hear about fraud cases and companies failing and the money disappearing and people going to court. This has to do with founders who are not being financially responsible. When that money comes in, you need to keep track of all of it, and then you need to use it towards the business. So some examples would be hiring more staff, or moving into a bigger office space. Maybe you're currently working in a very small space or at home, and you need to move into a big office space. Maybe you need to pay for some more marketing, and maybe you need to pay back some early loans. So maybe you had in your friends and family round, you had an uncle who said, I will loan you $20,000, but you need to pay me back at a certain time. It's not, he didn't give an investment, he gave a loan, and that you need to pay that back. So you keep track of all of this very, very closely, how much you received in investments and how that money is being spent. When you have equity investors, angel investors, VC investors, they expect that you exit the business. You will hear the terminology and you'll need to be able to answer the question, how will you exit the business? When equity investors invest and they want a percentage of the company in exchange, I'll give you $100,000 and I want 20% of the business. I own 20% equity in your business. I don't make my money back until you exit the business, until you sell the business to somebody else, or you go on the public stock exchange. This being in Kurdistan is not likely to happen. So let's say that you need to sell your business. If you have no intentions of selling your business, then you do not want equity investors. You do not want angel investors, and you do not want VC investors. If you have no intentions of selling your business, you look for partners. You want partners who are willing to put their money into your business, and then maybe you make an agreement with them that you write them a check once every quarter, that they get a certain percentage of the revenue that you're generating. But the intention is the two of you as partners are going to keep the business for 10 or 20 years, or you're going to hand the business down to your children. In that case, you do not want equity investors. Angel investors and VC funds are equity investors, and they expect you to sell. They don't get their money back until you sell the business. They don't receive quarterly dividends. They don't receive quarterly checks based on the revenue that you generated. They own a percentage of your business. They expect you to grow as fast as possible and then sell the business, and then everybody gets a return on the investment that happened. So exiting, when you hear the terms exiting, when someone asks you, how will you exit the business? You can say, I believe that the following companies are good targets to buy my business. So now, once you have exited and you have sold your business, you've gotten in 10, 20 times what you had before. All of a sudden, you have this big pile of money and you feel like, oh my gosh, I've been very successful. But you need to divide that money. You're going to split it all up. You got some loans you need to pay off. You need to pay off your angel investors from your early rounds. You need to pay off the VCs from your Series A. Maybe you had a Series B and you need to pay them back. Maybe you had some stock options for your employees. You need to pay them back. So when you sell the business and that money comes in, it is not all yours. You've been keeping track of who has been putting money into the business, and you need to pay them all back at a high return. So the shares that you get to keep depends on how well you managed what we call the cap table, the capital table. We call it cap table. And the cap table lists who owns what percentage of the business. So this is a cap table. And these are all the people who have invested, or the venture funds that have invested in the business, and the number of shares that they have, what percentage of the business they own, and then depending on how much you sell the business for, would break down the total amount of funds that they would get back. This is just an example. Yours would be very different. It would list very different numbers, but this gives you an example of what that would look like. And then everybody gets a return on the investment. So if I own 25% of the business, I get 25% of that total amount that you sold the business for. If you sold the business for $1 million, I get $250,000 back. That's 25%. I might have invested 100,000, but I get 250 back because that 100,000 gave me a right to 25% of the business. So here are some funding resources that are available in your area. If you have a startup right now and you've been working on this, you're probably familiar with all of these. If you're brand new at it, these are some of the options. You can take a screenshot of this slide here. On the far left, I have a loan where you can actually take a loan, but they're asking you to be an established business. You're not at ideation. You're not at early incubation. You have an established business. You've been operating for 2 or 3 years, and you have an annual revenue that will be at least 1.5, 1.5 times the loan amount. So if you want to borrow $50,000, you need to prove to them that you have annual revenue of about $150,000 per year. And then you can pull a loan against that. Then these other ones are all, you have the Iraqi Angel Investors Network, and then the other ones are VC, more at the venture level. So the checks they write are very big, but they also have a very high threshold of who they will invest in. Remember, they're only going to invest in 3 to 6%, 3 to 6 startups out of every 100 that they listen to. So you have to really stand out. And the way to stand out is to build a product that you did your research on first, ensure there's a market for it, and then build strong tools and processes to go gain a large portion of the market share. So one of the things that you want to do is keep this cap table as small as possible. So imagine this cap table as an example. If you have 20 or 30 names on here, that means your percent gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's not a proof of success to go out and get a whole bunch of people or businesses or venture funds to invest in your business. A proof of success is to have the least amount of investors on your cap table as possible. So you only want to go out and ask for investment when you have huge sales and you can't meet the demand of your sales unless you have an injection of money to build a bigger facility or to hire more people to build the product. So it's not about getting investment to go create sales. It's about getting investment because I have a sales backlog and I need investment so that I can meet the demand of my customers. My customer demand, my customer sales pipeline is huge, and I can't meet that demand unless I have some money to build out the business fast. It's not about success looks like I get a whole bunch of people to invest in my company. That's not it. Success is keeping this cap table as small as possible, building your business based on revenue that you're generating. So there's a perception out there, like I said earlier, that success is when you see all over the news, they got 1 million, they got 5 million, they got 15 million. But the truth is, you'll do better if you just work very, very, very hard and use the revenue from your business to put the revenue of the business back into the business, and do that as long as possible and resist taking outside investment until you absolutely have to, because you'll lose sales opportunity if you don't get an injection of investment. So an example of this is Intuit. So go do some research on Intuit. Intuit was, I'm sorry, not it, MailChimp is what I meant to say. So Intuit purchased MailChimp for $12 billion. The only names on that cap table were 2 founders. So 2 founders split $12 billion. because MailChimp worked very, very hard on growing the business based on the revenue they generated. And they ran it, I think it was 14 years before they sold it to Intuit. Now imagine if they had gone out and got a bunch of angel investors and a bunch of VC rounds, their cap table would have had 20 names on it, and that $12 billion would have been split between all of those different investors, and they might have gotten 20 or 25% of 12 billion. But in this case, they took no outside investments. They worked very hard, and these two people split $12 billion. That's success. That's startup success. And that's what you would want your goal to be. But if you need to take investment, understand what it means to your business when you take investment. The minute you start taking investment, those investors want you to grow as fast as possible and sell the business for as much as possible, because that's the only way I'm going to get a return is when you sell the business. All right, what do we have? So building the startup ecosystem where you are. If you're an entrepreneur, find big problems to solve. Instead of just saying, I have a new idea, I'm going to put my idea out there. Go find big problems to solve and then come up with a solution for the problem. Be really innovative and disruptive about what you're creating. Don't just copy something else that someone else has already made. Be creative, be disruptive, come up with something new and different. And if you're not an entrepreneur, then support the incubators and the maker spaces and the accelerators in your ecosystem by being a mentor or being a trainer or making small angel investments. Find ways to support the ecosystem so that your ecosystem in your region can grow. It can't grow just by entrepreneurs by themselves. It's a combination of investors, mentors, small businesses offering services at a discount, government providing some grants, nonprofits providing some grants. Like, it's this whole ecosystem to grow that ecosystem in your area. It's a whole community of different types of people. And then start offering entrepreneurship courses in schools, at university, and at primary, secondary school. Start offering entrepreneurship courses so that mindset is growing and there's more entrepreneurs coming out of school. And if you're a professional, become a mentor or a trainer. If you have some funding and wealth, become an angel investor. And then support and believe in the big thinkers. One of the things that happens in really early ecosystems, and this goes back to what I was saying before about don't wait until your product is perfect before you take it to market. You need to create an ecosystem where it's safe to bring products to market that aren't perfect yet, so that you can get feedback on them and build them and build them and build them until they become a really, really good, viable product. You can't build a really good product unless you're getting feedback from your customers, which means you have to take it out early. So if you're in the ecosystem and you see people building things, don't criticize, don't put them down, don't be disparaging, be really, really supportive and say, I can't wait to see this grow into a successful business, or I'd be happy to give you feedback on your prototype. So support them and give them feedback, give them encouragement, because you don't know whether or not this new device is going to be successful or not. We don't know, like when we're in these incubators and accelerators as a leader in that space, it is not my job to tell you if your product is going to be successful or not. I don't know if the product you're making is going to be the next great thing. It is my job to teach you the skills you need so that you go out and do the market research and you collect that feedback and you make sound decisions to see whether or not the market wants what you have. So everybody in that ecosystem, support in and believe in and encourage and help and provide feedback, and don't criticize and don't be disparaging, but really support the ecosystem. So that's the end of my portion, and I would like to open it up to Q&A. Hello. I think that you need to type questions into the chat.
Yes,
So
thank you, Eileen. They need to type it in the chat. And for those who are with us on Facebook live stream, you can comment your questions and we will read it to Eileen.
did you learn anything?
I
Did it
did.
help? Yeah. So what kind of questions can we think of? Oh, let's talk about Dashni. Share about the upcoming programs that you have.
Well, that's a great opportunity. While you guys are thinking of the questions, we do have a couple of new programs. Right now, we have announced the Investment Readiness Program, which is for startups at a later stage that are looking to approach investors and want support on how to do so, what sort of KPIs to use with investors and how to approach them and how to get ready for the pitch for the investors. And afterwards, the startups will get an opportunity to pitch to actual investors and hopefully get investment opportunities. That is one of our programs. It is open right now. The application is open. Check all of our social media platforms. It's all of our platforms. That is one of the programs. The other program is called Coaching TOT. It is specifically for professionals who have an expertise at a field in business, whether it's accounting, it's finance, marketing, management, and etc. For those who have that technical skill and want to learn how to deliver those skills to startups and mentor startups on their knowledge that they already have. Those two programs are open right now, so if you're interested, go ahead and apply for them. I think we have a question. Mr.
If we
Rizka,
have a ready project and came to finish but requires some funding, what is the best bring partner or investor? So having a partner or an investor, one of the ways to decide is whether or not you want to keep the business for 20 or 30 years, or whether or not you want to sell the business and get some returns on it. If you want to keep the business for 20 or 30 years, you do not want investors, you want a partner. If you want to grow the business really fast and sell the business within the next 5 to 10 years, then you can look for investors. As soon as you start getting investors, they want to see you grow fast and sell the business. Partners will be more involved. They may be able to bring you customers. They may be able to provide some support. They may be able to offer you office space. Investors tend to stay a little bit further back and let you just run it. What other questions? There's a process called due diligence. Due diligence means when an investor wants to invest in your business, you're going to go through a process called due diligence, D-U-E, due diligence, which means you have to have all your paperwork in order. So if I invest in your business, I'm going to look at your bank account. I'm going to look at all your finances. I'm going to talk to your customers. I'm going to evaluate your product before I decide if I'm going to invest or not. And that's the due diligence process. So you want to start keeping really, really good records and understand that an investor is going to look at your records before deciding to invest. Elaborate more on what you said about that it is not the accelerator's job to say if an idea would be successful or not, because I think sometimes it is necessary to know when selecting the startups or when you are supporting them with a business decision. So as I run an accelerator, Dashni runs an accelerator, we get many, many, many applications to come in to be in the accelerator. We need to decide which ones should go in. And actually, there's more emphasis put on who the entrepreneur is. Is it truly an entrepreneur who is actually trying to solve problems and build products to solve problems? Or is it somebody who just wants to make money as fast as possible? There's a big difference. So if you're going to do an e-commerce store, you're not creating any new product. If you have a restaurant, most accelerators are not going to accept restaurants or consulting services. Or if you're just selling imports, you get a bunch of imports and you're reselling imports. We don't look at that as startup businesses. What we're looking for are entrepreneurs who have found big problems that they want to solve. They have creative, innovative ways of solving the problem. And when I interview this person, they sound teachable. They're actually going to listen and they're going to modify the way that they're building their business based on feedback that they receive from trainers and mentors. Are they teachable? So those are some of the things that we look at when we're choosing who will be in the accelerator or what type of business will be in the accelerator. And then we provide that entrepreneur with the skills and the knowledge for them to go out and do the market research, for them to determine whether or not they're building something that the market wants. So we're going to filter based on, we're looking for a brand new product or service that's very innovative. And then we're going to teach you how to do the market research to figure out if the market wants it. So I'll give you an example. When we're looking at applicants, we might have 100 people apply, but 15 of them are a website that's reselling imports. That's not innovative or disruptive. We're looking for someone who's making something much more, like they're creating the software tools to digitalize an analog system, a paper system, and they've created the actual software to digitalize systems. That's much more interesting and it has a much higher success rate. So let's look at, Abraham says, whoop, I got to scroll up. Now all of a sudden the questions are coming in. Let me scroll up a minute, get caught up where we are. Why did the company that was bought by Intuit sold? They were two and no one asked them to sell it because they had ran the business for 14 years and they were exhausted and wanted to go, enjoy life now. They don't have to work really hard anymore. And they had a goal of, when we get to a certain point, let's sell it and be done. And they don't have to work again in their life. They're done. That's it. They've made enough money. So you said you were angel investor. Can you tell us in what kind of businesses you have invested in? I have invested in medical devices. I have invested in blockchain that is being used in Africa to help identify government resources, like where are all the wells, where are all the schools, where are all the voting stations, and to create individual IDs for each one of the citizens. Like in the US, we have what we call Social Security number. This is a blockchain software that's helping countries in Africa do the similar to reduce the fraud and increase transparency from the government. What else have I invested in? I had some stock in Airbnb and Mostly medical devices, like really small handheld medical devices that can get to market pretty fast. I like to invest in products that have patents. So I tend to invest more in products with patents versus just software. Why was the company that was bought by Intuit sold? They were just too, I think that was the same question. So we already answered that one. Let's go down to
Rahim says, since you have worked in Kurdistan, how do you see the future of technology in the country? And what are the major challenges facing tech entrepreneurs?
So the future of technology is awesome. You all have a really good opportunity to roll out technology that already exists in other countries, but doesn't exist yet in Kurdistan. There's an opportunity to create solutions to digitalize a lot of the analog systems. And I've already seen that starting. So instead of having a driver on a scooter deliver something and then have to receive cash, and then the driver has to go back somewhere else to give the cash back to the business, being able to have mobile apps where the customer can pay for the product in the mobile app saves that scooter time from having to go back and deliver that cash back. So if it's in a mobile app, then the scooter gets paid, and the business that had the product gets paid all digitally instead of with cash passing hands. So the more and more that the country accepts digital payment, mobile payment opportunities, the more you can expand services like that, like the delivery. Also, there's a lot of paperwork being pushed around that's still paper. All of that could be digitalized and turned into paperless systems, like who we had that was digitalizing the healthcare billing, the hospital invoicing and doctor office invoicing, digitalizing all of that. Do the same thing for a bunch of other businesses. Come up with 3D printing with cement for houses. Right now, out in other places in the world, there are these giant 3D printers that are extruding wet cement, and they're building entire houses with wet cement going through a 3D printer. Bring that in to Kurdistan, into Iraq. You have a lot of cement companies there already. So that's a huge progress, very innovative and disruptive, and a great opportunity to make change. Change the food packaging materials. There's too much styrofoam being used in Iraq, and transitioning all of that food packaging away from styrofoam and plastic. I don't know, I can go on and on. We'll leave it there. Facebook, should one get involved in incubation several times? Would it be beneficial or waste of time? It depends if you have different ideas. So if you have an idea and you go to an incubator and you have you go through the process and you get the training and you build your network, and then you do your market research and you find out, oh, I should not build this. I don't have enough customers. The market is telling me it's not a good fit. I need to come up with something else. So now you have a second idea. It's perfectly okay to go back into an incubator with your new idea and try it again. But as you're building those skills, some of them you'll be able to do on your own, not being in an incubator. But it's nice to be in an incubator because you can get the mentors and you can get some training, additional training. Maybe there was something on business finance. The first time you went through it, it was a little too big. It was a little hard to learn all of it. So you retake some of those training courses, so more of that knowledge sinks in and sticks with you. So there's nothing wrong with going through an incubator a couple of times, but you don't want to be doing it like 3-4 times, right? You want to be able to learn from it and move forward from there. Next question is how to find good business ideas. So look around. I just gave you some ideas. One of them was the food packaging. One was 3D printing for the houses. And I know that sounds really, really big. And it sounds like, oh my gosh, Eileen, we can't do that. But in reality, you can strive to. You can go talk to researchers, go talk to cement companies, go talk to CNC printer, universities that have access, and start small and create something very small to show, to do the proof of concept small, and then build a little bigger and a little bit bigger. So you don't have to say, today I'm going to build a machine that's, twice as big as a house because it's going to print a house, but you can start small with a prototype to start doing that proof of concept and getting people to join your cause. I would look at observing the school system and how students and teachers get to school. What tools are they using for teaching? How current are the tools and books that they're using? Is there an opportunity to introduce new teaching methods or new teaching topics? STEM activities. What type of STEM activities can you bring into the school? What kind of products can you build so that the schools will buy them, so that you're teaching students STEM, so that you're graduating more people that have a technology or entrepreneurship mindset? You can look at the food packaging, which I mentioned before. You can look at transportation. How do we improve transportation? I don't know, I would go through everything that you touch in your daily life and say, how can this be better?
Exactly. Especially living in Iraq, you have so many opportunities. We have so many challenges, and
right.
therefore a lot of opportunities as well. We have another question that is Shanka is asking. She's saying, is it okay to be slow in your business progress because the idea is new and services need time to show the results? How much time is okay to spend in building case studies?
So it's only okay to be slow if it's a product or service that's very hard to duplicate. It's very hard for someone to copy you because you're making some new science-based, biology-based, or medical device. It is not okay to be slow if it is something that is easy for somebody to copy you. Because if it's easy to copy what you're doing, it's important that you are first to market and that you get a very large market share, so that you're the leader in the market with your solution, which is fine if you're building something that is very, very complex. But if it's a software solution that anyone else can build the code and copy you, it is not okay to be slow. You need to go very fast. So you don't need to do a bunch of case studies. What you need to do is go out and do user persona, customer discovery interviews and get 50 of those done within 2 or 3 weeks. And then make a decision on what you're building, and then build it, get a prototype out as fast as possible and get feedback on it.
Wonderful. Bahra is saying, Bahra is asking, are there any design thinking books that you recommend?
Yeah,
especially for students.
Yep, I'm going to go out to the web very quickly here and show you one. If you go to Stanford Design Thinking Process, they have a PDF document that you can download. This process guide right here, where it says an introduction to design thinking process guide. This is Stanford University. This is a PDF document. It's available for free. You can download it right now. It's about 90 pages long, but it's written very, very, very simply. And it will take you through the process, introduction to design thinking. It'll get you everything that you need to be successful there. And unfortunately, we're out of time.
We are out of time. Do we have time to cover? Yeah, we are almost 10 minutes. Should we take one more question or?
We'll do one more.
Okay. Is it better to have a product that people need or a product that people like?
You need a product that people are willing to pay for. So whether they need it or they like it, are they willing to pay for it? If it is something that they like, but they don't need it, then they need to have expendable cash, extra cash to get it because it's just something they like. If it's something they need, they're more likely to spend the money to get it because they need it. There's a difference. If I need it, I'm going to allocate money to it. If I like it, I'm going to spend money on other things first. And then if I have enough money left, then I'll buy it.
Great. Thank you so much, Eileen. Thank you everyone attending, and thank you for your questions. They were really interesting. So thank you all for attending. Again, thank you for this very insightful presentation and webinar, Eileen. It was wonderful having you. We learned a lot. I personally learned a lot. So everyone, have a wonderful weekend. Again, thank you for joining us today. If you have a startup and if you're at a stage where you're looking for investors and looking for investment, go ahead and apply to our investment readiness program. And if you are a professional who has years of experience at a field, please go ahead and apply to our coaching TOT program. This is specifically for people who are interested to become startup and SME mentors and give their expertise and knowledge and transfer their knowledge to these startups. So have a wonderful weekend and take care.
Bye. It's great to see you all.